tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host, Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, what's up, Spaceship Earth? Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you could always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I am your host, Jonah Bolt. Today is Thursday, a beautiful Thursday back in sunny South Florida, December 3rd, 2015. Sorry about the show. Yesterday we did have a show lined up for you, but because of technical difficulties, we were unable to broadcast. So it is good to be back live on the airwaves. With that, I want to give a shout out, of course, starseedradio.com, where you can find the latest news and updates. We're always posting up new articles, different events, pictures, all sorts of stuff on there. Check out starseedradio.com. We have 2 different Twitter feeds up there, as well as some Starseed tracker feeds, and also some Earth weather change feeds and stuff like that, so you can stay connected. Also, check out starseedtechnologies.com. If you want some free energy information, you can fill out the form on the left-hand side, as well as if you haven't received a free piece of Elite Shungite, give us a call, or you can fill out the form as well on the left-hand side of the website, starseedtechnologies.com. Elite Shungite is an amazing quantum healing stone. We've been giving it out since about February or March of this year, and we're going to continue to do so because we keep hearing so many amazing benefits from people that receive this stone. So you can check out starseedtechnologies.com or call toll-free 888-400-2328. Again, that's 888-400-2328. Anytime, and leave us a message if someone does not pick up, but you can call 24/7. And the last website is starseedgold.com. This is the new gold exchange and saving system we've been talking a lot about over the last month or so on the show. Starseedgold.com will give you a video and some information. It is free to sign up. You could sign up for a free gold savings account. This is a worldwide movement. What this organization has done is phenomenal. I would love to talk to you personally about it. If you have any questions or want any more information, you can contact me direct on there. My phone number and email are on there. Again, that's starseedgold.com. This is a new gold saving and exchange system where you can actually spend gold for goods and services as well as save gold. It's a good opportunity to turn your fiat currency into gold. With that, we're going to get the show started with our daily quote. Your third eye acts as a way to see into the non-physical reality that we are a part of and coexist alongside of. Humans are points of consciousness manifested into physical dimensions. All that we do, feel, think, dream of, envision, act on, etc. have ripples of energy attached. It's up to you how you use this knowledge. This message is from Tumblr, TUMBLR. I'll post it up on starseedradio.com. With that, we're going to jump to our special guest of the show. I've had him on the show a few years back, so it's good to finally catch up again with Ed. He's doing some amazing things, and he just launched his brand new book, which is available for free online, which is amazing. I love when authors give away their books for free. I think that's how knowledge should be given away. So with that, Ed, thank you so much, Ed Komarek, for coming on the show. How are you today?
Oh, doing good. Glad to be on again.
That's it. Excellent, excellent. Now, I know you told your story last time, but it's been a while, Ed, so if you would just take 5 minutes or so and just give the listeners a background of who you are, how you grow up, pretty standard, regular, childhood, and then maybe right into some of your experiences, UFO experiences, or your awakening, and then we can dive into the 3 books that you've published. That'd be great.
Okay, basically I was born and raised down in the southeastern United States, just north of Tallahassee, Florida, in Georgia, on a plantation that's about 1 square mile, where I was able to run free and fancy free, and hunt and fish and whatever. And then I grew up in a family of ecologists, and I went to Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska, to go to college for a couple years until I dropped out. I happened to be back in the center of Fairbanks one very cold night in the middle of winter, I think probably in '67, and I bumped into this little New Age bookstore on a back street, and I opened the door. It was nice and warm to the sound of chimes and tarot cards and books on UFOs and out-of-body experiences, and I just felt right at home, and I started reading and studying, and that kind of led to an existential crisis in my early 20s, and I dropped out of school. I still worked for Fish and Game for 3 summers, and then I worked moving furniture for a couple summers, and then I worked on the Alaska pipeline for 3 summers. And I got more and more interested in the UFOs because you could more or less kick the tires on UFOs because people were dealing with something that was solid and factual. You had declassified documents and that sort of thing. But I also had a strong interest in reincarnation, out-of-body experiences, shamanism, a lot of the New Age stuff at the time. But I kind of concentrated on UFOs for 45 years, and then I came out with the book UFOs, Exopolitics, and the New World Disorder that we talked about previously on a show that we did together a while back. And since then, I did a book called Fire in Nature. It's about the importance of fire's important role, both in light fire and in catastrophic fire ecosystems all around the world. And that drew on what I had learned as a young man growing up in a so-called fire environment or fire ecology environment with my father, who was a premier fire ecologist at the time. And then the last couple years, I concentrated on writing my Enlightenment book, The Long, Hard Road to Enlightenment. And I thought, that pulled together what I know on that subject. So what I've tried to do at the end of my life is to pull everything that I've known into books that people can read free on the internet. They can go to my portal website, Komarek, KOMAREK.weebly.com/ and that portal website goes to the 3 Books website, also to the Extraterrestrial Cultural Center website and whatever that people can access. And so I thought, it's important to pull together everything I knew because I have benefited so much from being mentored by others, all through my life that I felt at the end of my life I really needed to put back. And that's what I've done, is put these books out so they're free on the internet. People can order them on print and Kindle from Amazon, but you can read them on your cell phone or on your computer the way they're set up now.
Excellent. Great. Thank you for that. And just to, let the listeners know, Ed, we've spoken before, and you come from a background of a very simple background like myself. Growing up here in Florida, I was raised as a Florida cracker by my father, and I grew up and just nice and simple and wasn't really into too much, but just going to school and doing this. But I always knew something was greater, always knew something was a little different. And we are broadcasting live from Boca Raton, Florida, so we're both here in Florida. And we were in the Virgin Islands yesterday, so a shout-out to me dad. And growing up down here, I really didn't get too much into really stories of UFOs. It was more the city life down here. But when I moved up to Asheville, North Carolina, I met a lot of good old boys. And by good old boys, I mean people that were really brought up correctly, people that weren't brought up to lie, people that weren't brought up to manipulate. Me growing up in New York and the business world down here in Florida, that's what you do in corporate. You step on the next person's head. You do what you got to do. You do whatever you need to do to make the money. And that's what we were programmed with. That's what we were taught. And it wasn't until just about 5 or 6 years ago when I moved to Asheville that I met real people. And I mean people that were just brought up in a good way to respect the planet, respect each other, weren't programmed to lie to each other, manipulate people, step on the next person's head, to make a business deal happen. And I really started hearing more and more about ET and encounters and UFO stories firsthand, and I heard these experiences from people that I just knew were authentic. I knew were legitimate. I knew weren't lying to me. It wasn't coming from seeing it on TV or a movie or something. It was coming from firsthand. So I know when we spoke years back, I felt that resonance with you. You were coming from a place, you worked in the Alaskan pipeline. You were just a regular person like me, doing what you need to do. And then one day you sort of had this awakening and you started having these experiences. Now, in your first book you wrote, if you could give us a little synopsis on the first book, and then also on the second, then we'll go into the third.
Okay. What I tried to do with UFOs, exopolitics, and the New World Disorder was to pull together everything I knew about UFOs and try to cull through so much of the trash that's out there, the scammers, the hoaxers, and all that. And it takes quite a while and many years to be able to do that. And a lot of people just don't have the time or the inclination to spend years trying to figure out what's at the bottom of it all and what the truth really is and what the big picture is. And so the book is really about the big picture. It sort of orientates us or orientates an individual as to where we are now, where we want to go, maybe in the direction of some of these more advanced extraterrestrial races that have communicated with people, and how do we get there. And this is what I've tried to do kind of in my other books, and I kind of brought that out in an enlightenment book. Any kind of a endeavor, you really need to know where you are. You need a set of coordinates where you are, and you need to know where you want to go, and then you need some kind of a discipline or a way of being there. And so I pulled together everything I knew about UFOs, and extraterrestrial contact in that book, and basically pointed out that the real reason there's a cover-up is because there's a lot of money being made in reverse engineering these technologies and putting into the marketplace, as well as suppressing a lot of technologies that would supplant the fossil fuels industry and the construction industry that builds roads and bridges and highways and asphalt and all that kind of stuff, when you have a simple gravitic air car, which they are able to produce now, but it's being suppressed in the same way that the energies that these UFOs operate on are very, very cheap, almost limitless energy that would supplant the fossil fuels industry and the electrical power industry and everything else. And so way back in the late 40s and early 1950s, the elite knew about this because they had their children and people in the intelligence community and everything. So they realized that it's extraterrestrial contact. And so their main thrust was, how can we profit by this and how can we protect our corporate interest? And so they set about doing that. So they got a head start on everybody else, and by suppressing the knowledge of extraterrestrial contact, it's allowed society to run way in the wrong direction. Back in the 1950s, we should have had electrogravitic air cars, where we didn't have highways and bridges and asphalt and all that sort of thing, and we should have had power sources that were almost unlimited and almost free and unlimited and non-polluting types of energies, but that didn't happen, and so we've got the situation that we have today. And supposedly Eisenhower met 3 different times with at least a couple of different extraterrestrial races, the human types first, and who Eisenhower's generals really did not come to an agreement with them because they wanted us to cut back on our nuclear testing and warfare, and they weren't willing to do that at the time. And so the other type, the Greys, came, and apparently there were some secret deals cut with them, as well as the Tall Whites, which gets into the whole thing out in Nellis Air Force Base and what's been going on out there. So that's all pulled together in that book, and everything I know on that subject that other people can build on, just like I've been able to build on the good works of others. I would never be to the point where I am today if I hadn't built on the shoulders of others, and so that's what that book was about. And the fire book is an important book in that there are billions of acres of what we call light fire ecosystems around the world that require light fires to burn through and clean out the underbrush and the undergrowth and open the canopy up so that grasses and herbs and sedges that are food for wildlife and plants and insects can grow. And these trees, the keystone species trees, like the pines, longleaf pine here down in our area, have an insulating bark so that light fires don't hurt the tree, but they burn out the competition and open the canopy up so that all this vegetation can grow that feeds the wildlife. And there's not a lot of wildlife that just eats acorns or lives off of trees. A lot of the wildlife is living off of grasses and herbs and legumes and that sort of thing and whatever. And these ecosystems have been devastated because the native peoples were managing these ecosystems. And, there were millions and millions of native peoples managing these ecosystems all over the world. But then in the 1800s, starting in the 1700s and 1800s, the population of native peoples got knocked back to 10% or less of what they were originally. So you lost your native fire managers who were burning and keeping these old growth forests open and easily accessible to them for food and foraging and hunting and fishing and that sort of thing. And then so the fuel accumulation started to build up, and then they started having these huge, bad, catastrophic fires that burned up whole cities in the western United States and also in Australia and elsewhere. And so fire got blamed for it, not the fact that you lost the native fire managers and that the fires were catastrophic because the fuel accumulations had built up so high that then they blew up and it destroyed those cities. And then, to make matters worse, fire was blamed for that, and the U.S. Forest Service started a fire exclusion policy to keep fire out of all these light fire ecosystems, which has just aggravated the situation. And now it's just blowing up in the western United States, whereas it's more been a convert change here in the eastern United States, where the vegetation types have changed almost completely because of logging and lack of fire, that you've gone to the more non-fire type plants and whatever in the eastern United States. You have pines going all the way up into New Jersey, western the cockaded woodpecker, which is connected to the longleaf pine, is down to less than 1% of its range, and that's the range was was that big, but now the woodpecker's declined the same way as the spotted owl in the western United States. So unnecessarily, there's been great devastation to our ecosystems around the world, and so that's why I get into the book, the Fire in Nature book. And then the Enlightenment book is what we've been discussing. Is that also evolved from when I went through my early difficult period in my early 20s and realized that there was a higher power, there was things greater than what I thought there was, and I began to expand out into that. And so I pulled all that together in this Enlightenment book.
Excellent, great. Thank you for that. That was a great background. And going back to the first book, which is Fire in Nature, a Fire Activist Guide, there's a lot of important information you touched on, which was, there's plenty of information showing that many governments, presidents, even Hitler, documented that they had these meetings with extraterrestrials, met with them for technologies, did different bargains with them for use of humans for other experiments. I mean, the rabbit hole goes really deep when you dig down on this stuff. And even just last year, there's been tons of declassified information. You have the Paperclip Project and Bluebeam and all these different things that are all coming to light. And I think one of the issues and problems, even with getting out this information, Ed, is that people are so set in their ways, they're so programmed that even by telling them that there's declassified government documents, they're still in disbelief. And I think really at the core of it, Ed, is really because by accepting this new reality that we are trying to enlighten the planet with, it shatters people's current reality and puts them into a state of fear. And that fear is very, very hard for people to get over. Even for myself, when I first woke up and started diving into this information shattered everything I'd been taught and learned and programmed my whole life. And it changed my thinking, the way I looked at things drastically, the way I looked at world situations, everything. So when you take someone 40, 50, 60 years old that are very set in their ways. I was in my early 30s. It's very hard for people to deprogram all that. And I think that's sort of the uphill, battle, if you will, that a lot of us face in helping get the knowledge and information out there that's been lost, hidden, and kept secret, is to help people understand that we want them to do their own due diligence. We want them to check this information out. By you writing your books is just your way of you putting down what you have learned to be true in your books. And you want them to read your books and go and do their own research and try to figure this out and do what they can and do their own due diligence, because I always say on the show, don't listen to me. Go look this stuff up. Go check this information out for yourself. I'm not on here to tell you anything. I'm on here to share with you what I've learned to be truth, the information that I'm seeing, and then you use your own discernment and resonation and see what's truth for you. And I think that is the only way for us to really move forward through this, and it is to allow people to learn this information for themselves. We can only do so much. You can scream till you're blue in the face. It's not going to change anyone's set ways if they're a Mormon and they're not open to anything, or if they're this way or that way, or, if they're just closed down and not open, then they're just going to stay that way. And that's okay, because maybe that soul is just an observer soul, and they're just here to be a Mormon and observe it, the life as a Mormon. That's not for us to say or judge. But there are a lot of people that are misled, and those are the people we're really looking out for and going after, are the people that are open to this stuff, that have been misled like myself, that always knew something was wrong, that always had a gut instinct there was something greater, but I was lied to and misled. And me, once I was told the truth, I was like, that's it, I'm telling everybody, just like you're doing through your books. And I think that's, very important for people at home to hear, is we want you to check this information out. Ed's 3 books are his experience, his information, but regardless of what's in those books, everything you read, you should check out for yourself and do your own, checking and looking and reading and watching videos like we have for the thousands and thousands of hours that we've put into learning this information, because it's a lot of information, Ed. And when you go into your second book and you go into exopolitics, the New World Order, that's a very big topic as well. You have the Bilderbergs and the Trilateral Commission, and you have the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all these different secret societies, and it's a lot to unravel or even understand. Agenda 21, the UN Council, all these different committees. There's so much been infiltrated that it's very hard for people to even conceive or open up with the thought that things really are not the way they are and things are far greater. But to me, that's exciting. Don't you feel the same way, Ed? Aren't you excited about learning that this information is real?
You hit on 2 really good points. One is the fear of change, of something different, of having to start from the bottom of the ladder all over again, with everything you knew was wrong. Mm-hmm. So you have to start, and that's difficult for a lot of people. And then the second one is, like you say, is there's so much trash floating around, people's opinions or whatever, that doesn't have very much or little factual value, and that just confuses the whole situation. And so what I try to do with my books is to source the material, give the links to where the source material is coming from, and people can check my sources. And I quote a lot. I can get away with it because they're self-published books, so I can get away with quite a bit of quoting in here, more than probably a regular publisher would allow. And so I don't want it just to be what I'm saying. I wanted to, just pull the information together, in one place, so that people can just read one of these books and get a pretty good understanding of that particular area of expertise that I personally have been involved in, which is mostly these 3 books. I'm going on to maybe writing another book called Rebuilding Nature, and we started up a Facebook page on that. And we already have Facebook pages on Extraterrestrial Cultural Center and Enlighten Your World and Politics of Exopolitics and whatever. And also I have one on Fire Association of Fire Management Activists. but so I may go on to another book, but I'll have to see. But my most critical books were these three books, because this is where I have most of my understanding is in. And people can read these books, they can check the sources and see that it's not just frivolous or made-up material, because that is one of the problems. We have the fear factor, but then we have the problem is just people spreading information that's not true, or it's meant to be deceptive, or they have good intentions, but it's just not good quality information, and it just confuses and muddies the water, so that people just throw up their hands and leave this area of understanding and don't really realize how important it is to their mental and emotional health and to their future and their children's future.
Absolutely. And we see, the growing problems and issues around the world with these different wars and all these things going on now, and people really need to come together and start, not hiding in the sand, but getting their heads out and looking into this information. We're not doing this to become famous. We're not doing this to be, the next greatest, whatever star out there. We're doing it because we find this information to be truth, and the truth needs to get out there, and we are truth seekers and truth speakers, and that is why and what propels us to do this every day. And I think that's very important for people to understand, is we're not coming from a place of fame and glam and making all this money and everything, because that's definitely not been the case for me the last 5 or 6 years. In fact, it's the opposite from where I came. So, we're doing this to really just help people and be of service, and coming from a real pure intent from that place. And I think that's very important as well for people to know, is that in this movement of truth, when you talk about ETs and UFOs and things like that, there is so much information nowadays to back this up that it's even ridiculous when people even make a comment about ETs or UFOs not being real. I call them crazy. To me, they're out of their minds if they think the ETs are not real and UFOs. You have the ex-former the Minister of Canada on national TV, the defense minister. He's all over the planet now talking his truth, which is, darn right that these ETs are real. He's seen them, they've seen them, they know about them, and there's plenty of whistleblowers everywhere, credible people, honest people, so the time is up. Hang on right there, Ed. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, I want to jump into a little bit more about your third book, but also about the Extraterrestrial Cultural Center, the ECCI. So hang on right there. We're joined by Ed Komarek with Starseed Radio. We'll be right back.
Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes. Saturday on Truth Frequency Radio.
I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a Jedi Master.
Jedi Master? Yoda. You seek Yoda.
Yoda?
Clear your mind of questions. You must unlearn what you have learned. The Jedi spirit flows from the Force. That is the way of things. For my ally is Force, and the powerful mind is its energy surround, and bind us. Luminous beings are we, not just truth, Master.
All right, welcome back to the show. Thank you, Yoda, for the wise guidance, as always, of the Force. We're joined by Ed Komarek. Ed, am I pronouncing your name correctly? I feel like I'm not. It's Komarek, correct?
That's getting close.
Okay.
Komarek.
Komarek, there we go. All right. And we're talking about contact, ET, UFOs, disclosure. And Ed has written 3 books. They are available for free at his website, komarek.weebly.com. You could check that out. And his books are Fire and Nature, A Fire Activist Guide, UFOs, Exopolitics, and the New World Disorder, and his newest book, which is Enlightenment, The Long, Hard road. And it really is that when you do first wake up and you go down the road of enlightenment and you learn about your thoughts and your words and everything is manifesting and co-creating, you really start to watch what you say and watch the actions you do, and it becomes a little bit more tougher than sort of living inside the matrix, as they say in the movie, and becoming oblivious to your actions and everything. So when you do awaken, it is the long, hard road towards enlightenment, towards ascension, and it definitely has been some of the most difficult times in my life the last few years on this path of awakening. So real excited that you put these books available for free. It's really awesome. So again, your website is komarek.weebly.com, where people can read these books for free. They can go on there, read about you. And I also now want to jump into another topic, which is the Extraterrestrial Cultural Center, the ECCI. And I just found out about this when I was talking to you and looking through your books, and I saw that on your Facebook page, and haven't heard much about this. So if you would, Ed, tell us about this. I did read through it and read the business plan and read some of the introduction stuff, and it really sounds pretty fascinating. We've had Stephen Greer on, we've had Costa on, we've had all these different CE5 groups. So this is really cool that this concept has come up. So if you would, give us all a background and a download on what the ECCI is.
Okay, let me go back to the Enlightenment book for just a second.
Sure, absolutely.
Basically the Enlightenment book is basically the basis of it is that life is really a school, that all creatures, whether you're a single-celled organism, a human being, or an extraterrestrial, you're gathering information, you're processing information, you're storing information on which to make decisions upon which you either benefit from or are detrimental to you. Either you suffer or even die if you don't get it right. And so life really is a school, and everybody, once you get to a certain point, I discussed the Hawkins scale, and most people on the Hawkins scale, it's a scale from 1 to 1,000 that Hawkins developed, and most people, or 80% of the people, are at 200 or below. And when you get above 200, you start doing more damage than you're doing harm to both of yourself and your others and to the environment when you get above 200. And below 200 is depression, anger, frustration, just incredible amount of suffering, whatever, below the 200 level. But then as you move above the 200 level and you move towards the 500 level, which is another really tough barrier, is as you begin to appreciate that everything is unfolding as it should. Everybody is learning the lessons that they need to learn. Maybe some souls are new souls. They have only been in a lifetime or two. They're really screwing up. They're really being very brutal and damaging to other people and whatever, but it's part of their learning experience as to where they are. We have a right to protect ourselves, but they also have a right to their learning experience on the level that they're on. And so you begin to accept that everything is unfolding as it should, and as tough it is to understand sometimes is what's going on in Syria and foreign countries and the brutality that's involved. It takes an incredible amount of suffering to move evolution forward, unfortunately. And so it seems like the program that we're in is maybe has some very simple algorithms, and one of them is basically the reward punishment type of a scheme, and that you either get the stick or you get the carrot. And to start off with, when people are forced to move and evolve, and animals and everything else, you make the wrong mistakes, you suffer or even die. If you make the right decisions or whatever, then you prosper and you move forward in your evolution. And so it's good for single-cell organisms or even more advanced organisms and whatever, that life is a school and we have to make the right decisions, but everybody is learning where they need to be learning, and we have a right to protect ourselves from people that are acting in a predatory way towards us, but they also have a right to the level of understanding that they are and what they're doing. We just have to try to protect ourselves from that if we're operating from a higher level on the consciousness scale and whatever. And so I get into this very much all through the book, starting from shamanism and moving right on up to the latest consciousness research and whatever, that life is basically a school. And once you realize it is a school and that maybe more suffering is necessary for one's own self or even for others before you get to a point where you're ready to learn certain things. But there was an old teacher of mine, reincarnational teacher of mine, when I was a young man, who says first reality taps you on the shoulder. And if that doesn't work, it thumps you on the head. If that doesn't work, you get the brick bat. And so life is that way. The lessons will keep repeating themselves and getting worse and worse until you get it. And once you get it, then you get out of the punishment arena or the pain and suffering arena, and you get to start getting the carrot. And so people have to realize that they can change their states of consciousness. They're not fixed in depression or anger. These places of consciousness are like places. You can go from one place to the other once you learn how to do it, but you have to do a lot of emotional and mental house cleaning to move yourself on up the scale. But once you get on up the scale, you realize that everybody is where they are, learning what they need to learn, and you just have to work to protect yourself from those that are learning from a more painful level of experience, because they're still operating mostly on instinct, and instinct is pushing them forward. And so there's going to be a lot of suffering involved until they grow enough in intelligence that they can pick up the ball and consciously begin to move themselves forward and move out of the arena of suffering and into grasping the carrot and whatever. Now, as far as the Extraterrestrial Cultural Center, I had just written my book, UFOs, Exopolitics, and New World Disorder, and got it published. And I happened across a quote or something that Wendell Stevens, the researcher, extraterrestrial contact researcher, had been contacted by an extraterrestrial who brought up the subject of an extraterrestrial cultural center. That's the first I'd ever heard of that. And I got to thinking, I said, well, even small towns and cities have cultural centers. Why don't we have extraterrestrial culture centers around the world? And, where people can go to learn about the different types of extraterrestrials that are being reported, and the different motivations and agendas of the different types of extraterrestrials, as well as doing scientific research and whatever. So I thought that I would focus on just trying to build that concept up. And so that's what I did for the Extra Cultural Center website. I even used business to develop a business model using the simple small business administration forms and whatever as to, mission statement and all this kind of thing is what extraterrestrial culture center would entail. And so the whole concept is there for somebody now to come along who's got a little money and resources and wants to take the ball to the next level, can just pick it up, and the concept is all there, and they can just build on that, and to actually create these extraterrestrial cultural centers around the world where people can get good quality information on extraterrestrials. Maybe you could have a museum, with, like they have wax models for, people, whatever. You have wax models of the different type of extraterrestrials that you could wander through the museum and see the different types, and maybe a little bit about each type of extraterrestrial, what their culture is. You may have one on, say, the tall whites, which is pretty substantial, with Charles Hall and the tall whites, which I get into my UFO book and whatever, quite a bit, a whole chapter on him, because his story's been backed up by other people who have seen the tall white extraterrestrials and who seem to have a base. There's seem to be two extraterrestrial bases at Nellis Air Force Base. Nellis appears to have been formed around two different extraterrestrial bases for that very reason, and one was the Greys, possibly the ones that crashed at Roswell may have come from there, and the tall white extraterrestrial base. And so you Charles Hall gave quite a bit about the culture of the tall white extraterrestrials. They're tall and thin and white, and they are somewhat autocratic. They really do love their children, give their children a lot of attention. They feel we're almost like animals because of the way that we treat our children. And so there's a lot of information about them, so you could have all this in the Extraterrestrial Cultural Center. And so that was just basically the concept, and now I'm just waiting for somebody else to come along and take the ball further, because I just don't have the resources to do anything more, but at least I've got the concept built for anybody who wants to take it and run with it.
Excellent. Well, that's great. I think it's a great idea, and I think at this time that many things like this should pop up around the world. And the reality of it is, Ed, is you're much as ET as everyone else on this planet. Our junk DNA proves that. Science shows that now. Our junk DNA is not from this world. The junk is ET, extraterrestrial, meaning that they don't know where it comes from. That's been shown in science now. So people really just need to get it out of their head that we're just as much as ET as the ETs flying around up in the skies. And that's how I see it anyways, and that's from my perspective. As my soul, from my understanding, came from the star of Arcturus. I believe all of our souls traveled here at some capacity through stars and enter the body. That's the 21 grams that leaves the body when every single person dies on this planet. 21 grams immediately leaves. So there's lots of science and stuff to back everything up, and I think having museums and having more open discussions and having things like that and having centers that focus on getting the correct information out and not the disinformation like we've been told is very helpful and very well needed. Not just here but all over the world. So I think this is a fascinating and really great idea. And I think it's only a matter of time, Ed, before things like this do happen. And I think that this center will be open one day. And I believe that once people wake up enough and people demand this type of information, that we'll see these more and more. And I think that's just what we have to do, is keep talking about it, keep the discussions going, keep letting people know, because the world that we're living in right now is not the world we want to co-create together. Even if we look at the news yesterday, we hear about these people that were shot out in California, and last week shot, and then Georgia also yesterday people were shot at a mass shooting that the news didn't even cover. The world is really spinning out of control. It's only going to take one big event to shut everybody up, and we don't want to see that happen. I know I don't. Whether it's a nuclear attack or whatever's going to happen, if humanity continues this way, we've seen it before when you talk about Atlantis and Lemuria and Mao and all these ancient civilizations. They fell for a reason. I wonder if Lemuria and Atlantis had radio shows like this warning everybody that if they continue to act and behave this way, it's not going to. Mother Nature is not going to put up with it. The cosmos is not going to put up with it. Just like when we detonated the Hiroshima bombs in Japan, we had UFO and ET encounters all over the world the next few years, unprecedented, because we put ourselves on the map with that one, really, by extinguishing all those hundreds of thousands of souls all at once, which is a horrible thing to do, and really put us on the map for, hey, the humans are going to do it again. They're going to blow themselves up, or destroy the planet and possibly the rest of this galaxy. So when you put a beacon out like that, like we did in the 40s with the atomic bombs and the mass murderings and things that are happening, this is not a conscious civilization at all. So there's people like you and me that are really doing whatever we can to raise the vibration, raise the awareness, but at the same time be conscious of the world that we live in and how crazy it is, because that craziness propels me every day to speak my truth, so we can change that. Not ignoring it, but at least being aware of it, so you have a conscious understanding of what's really happening around the world, which is right now it's very unstable. You have Syria, you have Turkey popping off, and now you have NATO stepping in with Turkey, and Russia says Turkey better not do nothing, and that's like the play-out field right there right now with China and Russia and U.S. and NATO, and the battlefield is Syria. And if that escalates, we could see some craziness happen. And unfortunately, the way the thing is with people, most people are like sheeple. They want to watch football and drink their beers and just. They think Obamacare is great. Everyone gets free health care. That's great. I love Obamacare. They don't even know that we lost our rights. We lost our rights with the NDAA Act that was passed in 2012 on January 1st by executive order of Mr. Obama and a lot of other executive orders. Our Constitution and Bill of Rights is gone with the NDAA alone, let alone everything else they've signed into executive orders. So the time of freedom is gone. The time of choice is gone. All we have right now, to me, is to make a choice whether to live and co-create a new world and make new systems, or keep feeding the old world and die with that one, because there's no other way. We're either going to go that route into World War III, which is not going to be pretty for the world, or we're going to go the route with bringing people together and creating new systems to sustain the planet. That's the only two options we have, and that's where we're at right now. Where do you see humanity making the choice, Ed? Based upon your experience, your books, coming from where you are, where do you see? Do you see humanity coming together and saving it, or do you see us going down like Atlantis again?
Well, one of my little things I really like that I use throughout my book is more suffering is necessary. And unfortunately,
I hear you. Unfortunately, I feel the same way, and I hate to say it, but it's like
okay. And but at the same time, as we see, everything in nature is either being created or it's being destroyed. That's why you have like Brahman and Shiva and the Hindu religion, whatever. You have the creative process, and then you have the destructive process that makes a compost in which new life then comes back out of. And so if you look like this on a big picture sort of thing, you can look at it for like nature. We're just instinctive creatures, just like E.O. Wilson said, like the ants, in that we go about our lives basically based on instinct to reproduce and expand our range. And we've done it remarkably well. We've expanded our range, and we've reproduced it to overpopulate the planet to almost the nth degree at this point or whatever. But what nature is doing is that it's forcing us to either move on in intelligence to the next level, or to crash and burn and maybe start create the sixth major global extinction on this planet, which from nature's perspective might be a good thing. It might create more diversity across planetary systems when you have, say, an asteroid hit the Earth, and just wiped out the dinosaurs, which allowed the mammals to evolve and us to evolve, whatever. And if the asteroid hadn't hit, maybe the dinosaurs would have evolved. Or if there was some other disaster that's even worse, maybe the insects would everything been knocked down to the insects, and insects would repopulate the world and develop intelligence and whatever. So, from nature's perspective, we are being driven to either perhaps create the sixth major extinction on this planet, or to move up to the level of empowerment of ourselves and to become more intelligent and to remedy the damage that we've done. And to some extent, from an more advanced extraterrestrial perspective, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if we are not ready to move up to the next level, it's better that we crash and burn at this time rather than to get up to their level and to cause a lot of hassle and damage to them because of our hostility and our low state of consciousness. So it's maybe just a natural process what we're going through to, in which we have to crash and burn this civilization, like prior civilizations. But if you look at it as an educational facility, that we're in an educational facility, we have opportunities being brought up in how we each individually deal with the crises that are happening in the world and how we react to them. And so no matter what happens to the world, or whether we become recycled and compost again, and for new races to rise up, or to move on to this next level, just like you're saying, the souls aren't, I got in the Enlightenment book, I got into Buddhism, and Buddhism actually, it talks about an avatar from another world coming to this world and everything. So they understand that there are other intelligent species on other planetary systems, and that we're not just evolving and reincarnating on this planet. We may be reincarnating in other lives on other planets, maybe even coming back here or whatever. So if this planet goes down, we're still, we're who we really are. This program goes down. There are other programs that we'll move to, and we very well may have moved from other programs where we have worked out more of our destructive nature and come to this world in order to work it out some more and to go through this process and whatever. So you got to look at it from the really big picture as a soul education, as a soul school for souls, and that we're not the only school for souls. So that there's millions and billions of schools throughout the cosmos that we are even aware of, not include other dimensions and elsewhere and whatever. So we got to take a positive attitude. We got to tune out the destructive energies and freaking out that people are doing, and just concentrate on trying to build a better world for ourselves and for our children. And that's what you and I are both very intensely doing. And so this provides us opportunity to be truly altruistic, and for me to make the books free even though I may get a little bit if somebody buys a print or a Kindle, I give away more every month than I get in royalties from the books, because this is, I live very frugally on $500 a month. I don't need a lot of money, and but that way my life has been my own, because I have lived so simply. And like we would talk before about, I was living up in Asheville off the grid, with the wild turkeys who, with 100 pounds of corn, I had them feeding around my feet by the end of this last summer up in North Carolina, where I have a little camp house on the Toad River there, where I feed them off the grid. So, and I also get in the Enlightenment book about the importance of culture. You have the destructive aspects of culture, and sometimes it's important for people to drop out of culture in order to filter out the destructive aspects of culture and keep the more beneficial aspects of culture, and then come back into it again. So there's this process in enlightenment, when we're on the path of enlightenment, where sometimes we need to back off, we need to get away into nature, we need to get away from other people and whatever, in order to sort through and process information, and then come back into culture to make a difference for the betterment of humanity.
Absolutely, Ed. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. And as you're talking, I just watched one of my favorite comedians, if not my favorite, George Carlin, and he's got a bit called "Save the Planet," and he was like, what are people crazy? They think they're gonna save the planet. He's like, 90% of all species that have ever lived on this planet have been extinct, and we didn't kill them all. He's like, who are we to even think that we're going to save the planet? Like, the planet needs us to save her, as if it hasn't, gone through asteroids and tectonic movements and pole shifts and everything. Like, you name it, on and on and on for the millions of years. And then the humans come along and they think a little plastic is going to kill the planet, and it's so true. I loved how he spoke truth, Carlin, because it is, and people just get all too crazy. And if you have to, and you, like you said, look at it from a soul perspective, this is a school. It's Spaceship Earth. We're here to evolve as a species, evolve our own consciousness. We're not here to, save the bees and trees and all that. Although we can do that, to focus in on exactly that and think that we're going to save the planet is a little out there. And what we really need to do is first save ourselves and center ourselves.
It all depends on our state of consciousness. If we bring our state of consciousness up, not only will we be better for ourselves, and we'll be better for other humans, we'll be better for the planet, we'll be better for nature.
That's
and
right.
Whatever. So our job is to run through this school, pay attention to the lessons that are being given to us every single day, every moment. Pay attention to the lessons and learn the lessons and move forward into a higher state of consciousness that is where there's less and less suffering and more happiness and satisfaction and joy in one's life. And so that's the job. And once you realize that, you're going to, you're in that 200 area. You can propel yourself rather rapidly beyond 200 and out of this morass of depression and anger and hate and frustration and everything else. But you've got to understand the very basics, and the very basics are that life is a school. Each animal, each little plant, each organism is gathering information, processing information, recording information, making decisions that are hopefully constructed. And if they're not, the animal or the plant's going to suffer or even die. And that even goes for civilizations or whole societies and species. And what really fascinated me on researching my book, my fire book, The Importance of Fire in Nature, is that when we burn the woods here of the light fire ecosystem, not only are we burning through pines that are very recent development. We burn through cypress. That's a Cretaceous type of plant. You burn through palm trees. You burn through a Carboniferous. That's when Pangea was back together again. And even to the Cambrian, where you have the lichens that first dominated the earth, on rocks and whatever, on the sides of trees. They get burnt and are still in the ecosystem. So nothing's really lost, even though a lot of species, went extinct. There's still species from all these periods that managed to survive even up to the present time. So the woods are the forest. The prairie is a composite of all of life that goes all the way back to the very origins of life. and whatever, and we're part of that. We can't take ourselves out of it. We got in the Rebuilding Nature page, there was a good article that got posted that about that we began this separation from nature that has been so damaging to us when we began farming. And when we started farming, we started exploiting resources, and then that moved on with as our technology development, and we got more and more separated from nature. And so now we're in these cities and in these concrete jungles where we're completely separated from nature almost. And I'm very much against this concept of getting people out of nature, depopulating the rural areas and concentrating them in cities. I think that's the wrong way. The Agenda 21 way is the wrong way to go, and we got to get people back into nature. We got to bring nature back into the cities, through plants on the sides of walls, landscapes for butterflies and birds up on the top of buildings.
That's it. I agree totally. Thank you so much, Ed. We really appreciate your service and your work for humanity and your books. And again, give out your website one more time to the listeners.
Okay, it's Komarek, KOMAREK.weebly.com/. Or you can go to your site or your Facebook page or any of my